Yes, sir. For you, noble Samanosuke.
For those who aren't savvy to this goofy shit, Onimusha is a little samurai action-adventure spooky demon baby game developed by Capcom. It was initially conceptualized by Yoshiki Okamoto as a, quote, ninja version of Resident Evil for the PS1, under the working title Sengoku Biohazard. Come 2001, it burst onto the Sony PS2 scene as what we now know as Onimusha. It was all it had promised to be, Resident Evil with samurai and not shitty voice acting.
Samanosuke.
All I have is booze and women.
Okay, Kaka voice acting intact, but they had swords and hammers and swords and gauntlets and whips and two swords and a big sword. The music and the aesthetic followed the same cinematic approach that gave these games such a grandiose presence. Chunky Baby Cam had a grand ass time with these games. The game just felt so damn right. That whole blueprint of the Resident Evil gameplay mapped into this world perfectly. The tank controls, fixed camera angles, scary bloody teeth, monster guys. I'd argue it worked better for this series than it ever did with Resident Evil. There were some big names attached to them too. This wasn't just some second-rate side project bullshit. There's some serious production being pumped into them. After watching all the behind-the-scenes footage, it's clear some real passion and care was put into the series. It saw quick success, and as a whole it would go on to sell 8 million copies worldwide, which isn't groundbreaking, but I mean, 4 mainline releases in a 5-year period, it's not a number to just turn your nose up at. On top of that, all the critics were eating this shit up. It was scoring consistently well with all the gaming publications, and it had amassed a solid following, so it only makes sense that in 2006 it would promptly fuck off and never be heard from again. Hold on a second. Maybe there's hope. Maybe we're not all Britney Spears being held captive for the past 10 years after all. Onimusha didn't entirely, as I so eloquently put it, fuck off forever. In 2019, Capcom finally threw us a bone in the form of an HD remaster of Onimusha Warlords. Now, they aren't so noble that they'd just put together an HD remake with no ulterior motive. What's the point of revisiting a series they had all but forgotten about? Seriously, what talk has there even been about this series up to this point? The characters haven't made a single appearance in anything. There are plenty of opportunities too. How many of these goddamn Capcom crossover games have come out at this point, and you're telling me you couldn't fit one character in? Okay, cool, one game, but let's be fucking real here. My point here being these remasters are a way to gauge the interest in an IP to see if it's even worth revisiting. And as it turns out, it's sold. So there you go, that's it. Story concluded. Turns out we are in fact a Britney, bitch. Made you look, big baby. As it turns out, Capcom isn't done with the Samurai Ghost Romper just yet. According to a massive leak that I found out about from an extremely credible and confidential source, it's looking like Capcom has a few more irons in the fire. Namely, like, probably 50 more Resident Evil titles, I'm sure, something pertaining to the Blue Bomber, and you guessed it, the real word on the Sesame Street is that an untitled Onimusha project is set to release sometime around 2022. So the Onimusha story isn't as dead as it once seemed, but what's changed exactly? An important thing to consider is that there's always been a looming fear that the heavy emphasis on Japanese folklore and themes weren't resonating with Western audiences. So much so, I mean, just look at the third game in the series, half of it fucking takes place in Paris. But looking at the current climate, it's pretty damn clear that the West is no stranger to Japanese culture anymore. Anime, gaming, music, the fucking food. What was once seen as a niche obsession is not only the norm, but now an integral part of the Western zeitgeist. That fine line that sat between what sells in Japan versus what sells in the US grows more and more obscured each day. But let's focus on the gaming aspect of this, because that's what counts here. Nioh, Sekiro, Ghost of Tsushima, these are 3 of the biggest franchises out right now, and the parallel subject matter can't be overlooked. Look at what's happened with the Yakuza series in recent years. A series deeply grounded in Japanese culture has transformed itself from this obscure little PS2 title into possibly one of the most acclaimed works of art out right now. Honestly, I can't think of a time when samurai and Nippon shit weren't completely fawned after by dorks like me and goofy neckbeards protecting the miladies of the world. This is Texas, baby. Open carry is legal on your ass. But this begs the question, what exactly is being conjured up by Capcom? I'm completely aware that this is all speculation. We might even have the rug pulled out from under us and get nothing, but I'll play ball. Realistically, a direct sequel probably isn't in the cards. A nearly 15-year hiatus has almost ensured that only the diehard fans are still familiar with the original story. I feel confident in saying that the plan is for a remake akin to that of Resident Evil 2 and 3. Capcom is obviously trying to get as much mileage as they can out of that RE engine too. They've already had success with non-RE titles in that engine, not to mention having already started development on other games series as well. But which Oni game? Dawn of Dreams? Demon Siege? Onimusha Soul? I just realized too that the character models in all these other games use the likeness of real people, but they probably already had to go through all that, at least for Takeshi Kaneshiro, aka Samanosuke in the Warlords remaster. And Yusaku Mitsuda had already been dead a whole decade before Samurai's Destiny was released, so I'm sure that one doesn't create much of a roadblock either. So Warlords or Samurai Destiny seem to be the most likely candidates, conveniently the two best-selling in the series. I'm still burpy, bitch. Trying to figure out how this game is going to play is tricky as well, because that old Resident Evil formula is out the window. I mean, Resident Evil isn't even Resident Evil proper anymore. But remember those 3 little games I already mentioned? These games could already serve as a window into what a future Oni project is going to look like. But here's the question nobody's asking. What does Cameron want? As far as the story, I think sticking to any of the Nobunaga plots is going to be the best bet, at least for the name recognition. So the smart choice in my opinion would be to tackle Samurai's Destiny. A Warlords remake feels redundant after the remaster, and Samurai's Destiny is self-contained enough to not alienate or confuse any new fans. The colorful cast of side characters could really help to diversify the story a bit, and since the original game was so flexible in how it was told in that regard, it gives room to expand on these characters and change the narrative if need be. This game also had the more interesting environments and bosses and some of the coolest character designs in the series. The gameplay issue is a little more complicated as well because, like I already said, the original formula just isn't going to cut it anymore. We've seen the Devil May Cry gameplay translate well enough in this RE engine, but Onimusha isn't nearly as fast-paced to adopt similar gameplay. So what then? There's some elements here that I feel can't really be sacrificed in order for this to retain that feeling of an Onimusha game. Soul absorption, the magic, puzzles, the level up system, the loose RPG elements, and most importantly, the Isen attack. Here's an easy solution. Blend elements of Ghost of Tsushima and Resident Evil 2 Remake. I really like how up close and personal the camera of Resident Evil 2 is, and I think in order to induce a little tension it's necessary because at the end of the day this game has to be a little spooky. And I think Ghost of Tsushima's emphasis on timing your attacks for the best result sounds like something, I don't know, what does it sound like? I know that's such a simplistic answer, but it makes the most sense to me. I think finding a way to format this game into an open world has its benefits as well, because the Onimusha series up until Dawn of Dreams has always been incredibly linear. So open this game up, let the Yagyu and Imasho villages act as hub worlds for your journey. Add some side quests to build the world and just immerse myself in this game. Set up some demon bounty hunts, not unlike the bounty hunts from Final Fantasy 15, to explore the Genma of this world and test our skills against stronger and more diverse foe. This is a whole lot being said on something that I don't even know is even gonna happen, but a boy can dream, right? I think Capcom's willingness to even revisit it at all indicates that they at least have some hope in reviving this series, in whichever way that may be. So here's to another year of uncertainty, I guess.